Hi everyone, I'm Chrissy B and welcome to the only TV program out there dedicated to mental health and well-being, The Chrissy B Show. And today we have so much great content for you, all of it to help inspire you to reach for your dreams whilst taking care of yourself in the best possible way. We start with our autism news correspondent Anna Kennedy, who's brought on her guest, writer Fiona Whitelaw, who likes to tell stories that have not been heard with the voices of those not usually listened to. She'll be telling us about her current film, Acceptable Damage. Also on today's show, we have clinical psychologist Dr Nihara Krause talking about what resilience is and how to build it. Then we have a special treat for you, some real-life stories from lovely ladies all the way from the US. And we also welcome back Dr Rob Hicks to answer your medical questions and our nutritionist Severine Menem to tell us all about the importance of vitamin D and showing us a recipe. So let's begin with Anna Kennedy and her guest Fiona Whitelaw. Welcome to the show, ladies.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
Fiona, it's lovely to meet you. So we're going to be hearing about you in just a second, but first let's get the updates with Anna. So what have you been up to, my love?
I've been up to lots of different things. I've been to a sleep clinic, UCL, going to be doing some work about sleep studies and research, so that I'll be very interested in that because, as you know, I don't sleep a lot. And we had the Katie Price show, which was really exciting because a lot of our performers were performing on Autism's Got Talent, and it was filmed, so that was great.
Wonderful.
And a football match that we're preparing for. So diverse.
Okay, and you've actually got a video as well, haven't you, to show us?
We have,
What's the video
when we
of?
were at St Ives, ITV came along and did a piece for us, so we're very excited.
Shall we take a look?
Yes, please.
There was singing, dancing and lots of brightly coloured costumes on the St Ives Theatre stage last night for Autism's Got Talent. The roadshow aims to fly a positive flag for autism and show what people with the condition are capable of. Grace Pascoe was there.
Whether it's dancing, singing, or even magic, these performers all have two things in common: talent and autism.
There's a lot of negative articles out there, and our charity is a small charity with a big heart, and what we do is we showcase what they can do. So it's about celebrating our children and our adults.
The glitz and glamour also spread to the guest list, which included Katie Price and her son Harvey.
But as a mum, I'm really proud. It's an amazing show to watch. It just goes to show you treat everyone the same and everyone's got a talent.
Charlotte Fieldson was non-verbal until the age of 5 when she suddenly started singing.
I'm going to be performing a song. It's called Love Never Dies. It's from the second battle of the opera. I hope everyone knows it. Singing is my life.
While some performers have travelled a long way, others are local, like Alfie Horrell from Carbis Bay.
I'm performing a song that I've written, and it's like its debut performance. It's the first time it's ever been performed or recorded, really. I'm feeling really proud of how I've done with it.
The show wowed the crowds and could even kickstart careers for some of the performers. Grace Pascoe, ITV News, St Ives.
We had great feedback from the video.
Amazing.
And obviously the performers were very excited to see themselves on television.
Wow.
So really proud, and it's just getting bigger and more well known.
Isn't it? It's really taken off big time. So tell us how you know our Fiona here.
Fiona, met her on social media, as I meet many of my guests.
That's true.
I just pick them up. And she's got a fantastic story to tell, and she came on my women's radio show, and we had a really good chat, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
It was really good.
Okay, so you're a writer, Fiona. Can you tell us a bit
I
about
am.
yourself?
I'm a writer. I've been writing for probably about 30 years. I'm a playwright and a screenwriter.
Okay.
And my current film, Acceptable Damage, is out on release in the UK.
And what's Acceptable Damage about?
Acceptable Damage is about a young teenager who has Asperger's, and she dreams of being a rock star, but she's being bullied by a gang of young people who are attacking her in her house and outside on the street. And yeah, so it's about how she copes with that, how her mum tries to get the police and the authorities to deal with the situation.
Okay.
And ultimately, it's about being othered, being treated as different.
Mm-hmm. Why the interest in
society.
Asperger's for this particular film?
Well, for a long time, I've been making art, I've been making theatre with a lot of young people with autism and other neurodivergent, what's the right word?
Disabilities?
Yeah,
Okay.
Being diverse? you could
Yeah,
say.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I was just thinking about how people are often treated differently because people don't understand why they behave like they do.
Yeah.
And in terms of me as a filmmaker and a writer, I like to represent stories of people who you don't normally hear from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That must be quite interesting though for you as well as a writer. Did you have to do quite a bit of research into things first before you?
Yes, I do. It depends on the subject matter. I mean, with this, because as I said, I'd already been working in that community for a number of years, and then very luckily, as when we had the radio interview, the actress who plays the role has Asperger's, so she was very key to the development of the fine tuning of the story. I mean, obviously, she's not playing herself, but her experiences as a teenager very much fed into the process.
What do you love personally about writing so much? What does it do for you?
Oh, that's a really interesting question. I really enjoy giving voice to people that don't normally get listened to.
Wonderful.
We were just talking about that, weren't we? Because I asked you, I gave you £1 million. What would you do with it in the arts world? And then you said you'd like to give a voice to people who wouldn't normally have a voice.
Yes. Or stories told from a different point of view. Quite often stories are told from a male point of view rather than a female if it's history. And so that kind of thing, I don't.
And you've been nominated?
Yes, so this film, Acceptable Damage, has just been selected for British Urban Film Festival. It's very exciting to be nominated. We're nominated for Best Film and we're nominated for Best Actress and Best Actor. And
that's really
so it's
good.
very exciting. It's a huge testament to the actors and the creatives and the director of my film, Lavinia Samina, who's very talented, and all of our cast and crew. It's a huge celebration of their talent.
Are you ready thinking of future projects?
Yes, you are.
Of course. A bit like Anna then, are you?
Of course, absolutely, very much so. Yes, always thinking about what's next.
And Ella, who plays the actress, obviously she's got Asperger's syndrome. She's amazing. Obviously,
incredible.
We had the interview and she's just got the way about her, hasn't she? She's a very special young lady. So she was talking to me about her dreams and what she would like to do. And she's definitely on her way.
She is.
Amazing. We've run out of time, ladies, so sorry.
That's okay.
Chat to you a bit longer, but all the best with the launch and everything. Must be really exciting stuff.
Yes,
really great.
thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing it in Ealing, so it's not going to be long.
Yeah, wonderful. And Anna, any future things that you're planning?
We've got lots of things right up till Christmas.
Apart from the football match.
Yeah. Football.
What's next, actually?
Autumn's Got Talent in October and the Autism Hero Awards in November.
Right.
So
two big events. It's gone so quickly.
Yeah,
it was only the other day we were talking about that, wasn't it?
Yeah, so if anyone's interested in nominating, the closing date is September 5th. So get your entries in now.
Wonderful. Fiona, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I will see you again next time.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, everybody, so now it's time to talk to Dr Nihara Krause about building resilience. Welcome to the show, Nihara.
Oh, thank you for inviting me. It's lovely to be here.
Lovely to have you. So first of all, Nihara, can you explain what exactly resilience is?
Yeah, so resilience really is the way that we deal with life's challenges, but specifically with things that are really, really difficult. And it's not about not feeling things, and it's not about kind of saying, if I'm not resilient, if I don't cope with things. It's absolutely about experiencing things, but dealing with it in a way that's helpful and productive.
Okay. And how do you think a person can actually build resilience and use it in the face of hard times?
Well, there's many, many ways in which a person can build their resilience. So first of all, we know, for example, that if you can rely on friends, if you can share in things, that the kind of power of people is a very important one. Your ability to think positively about yourself. So, working on your self-confidence and your self-esteem, your ability to express how you're going through, and it can be expression in a lot of different ways. And there are so many different ways, Chrissy, that one of the things I've done is I've got together a little program called Mind Your 5, which is 5 things that you can do every day to boost your resilience. And they kind of include looking after your physical health, but also learning to problem solve, learning to build on this positive self-esteem, learning to kind of rely on other people. So a range of different things.
Okay. Would you say, Nihara, that some people are kind of naturally resilient? Or is it to do maybe with sort of upbringing and things that they've been through?
It's a mixture of both, actually. We know that for some people, there is a sort of trait that makes them more resilient. But mostly, I think resilience can be learned.
Which is good news for everyone.
Absolutely. And one of the things we actually know is the power of actually parenting. And so, people who have very strong connections, attachments, who feel loved, somehow have in themselves a kind of innate belief that somehow they'll get through things.
So what can parents actually do to help their children then build this resilience?
I think first of all, parents, because they don't want their children to be upset, can be overprotective. So one of the things I think is to let them experience some of life's challenges, let them take on board things that they might fail in and then learn how to deal with it.
That's true.
Support them, always support them, help them with problem solving, make them feel that they are valuable. So let them have sort of really good feedback about being a good person, a valuable person.
Nihara, just one last thing. If a person ends up developing a mental health issue, does that mean they're not resilient?
Absolutely not. So I think when people do become mentally unwell, it can be for a whole range of reasons. And being resilient or not actually has no meaning whatsoever, because some people think that actually mental ill health is a weakness. And I think that's where it goes wrong, because people think, if you're not resilient, then you're not being strong and therefore you kind of permit it to happen. So I think it's very much about it's not about not breaking, it's about actually putting yourself together once you've broken. That's kind of the strength.
That's very clear. Thank you so much, Nihara.
Thank you.
And we'll see you again very soon.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you. So everybody, after the break, we'll be hearing some powerful real-life stories from some lovely ladies joining us all the way from America. So the reason that we did the dance, through the dance, I wanted to actually show the fight against depression.
The dance is so symbolic.
Waving the flag, because I think it's like saying to your worries, go away and don't come back.
I did like the dance and everything.
For example, this move, does anyone know what this one means when you do
the depression out and all the sadness out and like all the scariness out.
I see you back in the studio!
Welcome back to today's Chrissy B Show, everybody. So now it's time to meet our lovely friends all the way from the US. Hello, ladies.
Hello, Chrissy.
Lovely to have you on. So we have Wilnona here, we have Brandy, we have Abeni, and we also have Crystal. So each with their own powerful story, I have to say, and it's great that they've actually come on to share their stories with you, to show you that even if you do go through some really hard times, you can always recover and do something really positive with your life. But we're going to start off with the stories of Abeni and Crystal first of all. So let's start with Abeni. Can you tell us a bit about your past and what you've been through?
Yes, so I spent 20 years in the military. Within those 20 years, I deployed to different countries, obviously deployed 4 times to Iraq. And in that situation, I was a leader. I had to go every time. I didn't always want to go. I didn't want to leave my family, and so I had to find an outlet while I was there. And so that's when my faith developed more, with what I believed in. And I remember just, at night wondering and questioning God, like, why do I have to be here? you know, and it came to me so clearly that you have a purpose, you know, to fulfill here. There are soldiers that are dependent on you.
Yeah.
And it was revealed to me during one of the deployments when, you know, one of my soldiers came to me and she was like, I'm so happy that you're here. You always help me with my problems, my issues, and everybody looks up to you. You know, you should become a counselor one day.
Okay.
And so, long story short, my last year in the military, I'm getting ready to transition, retire, and I was working on my master's in professional counseling, and that's when I met Crystal, that you're going to hear more about. Yes.
All right. So, Crystal, now before we get into how, you know, you guys wrote the book together, you've also got a story to tell, haven't you? Because you've been through something quite difficult.
Yes, so my name is Crystal. I'm a licensed professional counselor in Texas. So Celeste was my practicum student, and kind of, you know, that year, God gave me a title, you know, Positive Living, and 21 Days of Positive Living. So I kind of jotted it down and was trying to figure out, well, when do I need this? But he knew when I needed it, because later that year, my dad passed away. So it helped me through grief in a dark place that I was in, and I didn't want to write. I didn't want to do anything. And Celeste she was always...
You say Celeste, you mean Abeni, right?
Yes,
it's the same,
I'm sorry.
Same person. That's okay, just so the viewers know, yeah. Talking about the same person.
So Abeni, she helped me through like the hard times, and she kind of was like, hey, reminded me, remember you wrote that, you know, that title down, and this was the following year in January, and I just kind of was in a low place dealing with grief and still having to be a professional, still having to set my emotions aside.
How did you do that, by the way? Because both of you were both like, obviously had your job, your profession, you were leading people and going through, it's a difficult thing to do, isn't it?
Yes, very difficult. I always say being mindful and doing, like you said, meditation, setting aside my emotions on the side and being in that moment, being present with my clients. So when I said we both can't be crying all at the same time looking at each other. So she reminded me and helping me to write. We both kind of sat down. That helped us to both get through her transition with retirement, my grief process of dealing with how do I move forward and still remain positive. So that kind of pushed me forward to be able to continue writing. So
okay. And how long did it take you to do the book then, two of you?
Wow, that's the interesting part. So, you know, it takes 9 months to birth a child. So starting in January of 2018, we met every Wednesday for, you know, every Wednesday for 9 months. And,
wow, that's dedication.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the book, we were complete with our part in August, and then, you know, it just took the next 2 months for the editing and all, you know, the administration part. And we launched the book in November. So 11 months later, from January to November, we were able to launch the book.
Is it your first book?
No, I wrote, my first book is The Butterfly Effect, Living the Single Life Through God's Eyes. And then it's a trilogy. So I have the other part of the book, The Butterfly Effect, Establishing Healthy Relationships. So that's coming up soon. But I kind of put that on pause to work on this project. Celeste was always bubbly personality and ready to, you know, to do work. So
how important was it to actually write that book during a difficult time, would you say, for both of you?
Oh, it was like a healing process. Writing, you know, for me is like therapy. So like my therapy to get out the emotions, you know, not to get stuck in a place of depression, you know, excuse me, a low place, anxiety or anything like that. So it kind of, for me, I would say the healing moving forward.
And how about for you, Abeni?
Exactly. It was the same thing for me because I was transitioning. I was getting ready to divorce. My career is what, you know, my counselor told me, because I went through a lot of emotions. You know, for 20 years, I'm leading, I'm busy. And so now to come to a point where, you know, I don't have to get up every day. I got to decide what I'm going to wear, because in the military, you know, we wear the same thing every day. So it was just a lot of emotions. It was a roller coaster. But in writing that book and her being my accountability partner, you know, and reminding me that, hey, we're on assignment, you have a purpose. And that that's what kept me going. And the journal, you know, it's so interesting because it has 7 important parts, 7, you know, that we call, that you cultivate, 7 important well-being parts of life, gratitude being one of them.
Yeah,
and that, you know, if you start the day with gratitude and purpose, you know, the rest of life, the rest of life is easy. So it was exciting just going through all the chapters, writing our parts.
Were you able to divorce the military completely, or do you kind of still miss it sometimes?
I miss it sometimes, but it's absolutely, you know, much easier than it was back in 2017 when I first retired. But of course, I still miss it, especially if I had to pass the installation like, oh, I used to be married to, you know, them, but it gets easier.
Now, Wilnona, can you just explain the link between all of you as well? Because, you know, you're all linked by a common thread, aren't you? Can you just explain that one for us?
Well, we all have went through something, and the best thing that got us through it was writing. And if writing hadn't been present in our life, there was no way that we probably would have taken those steps forward. Although I have to say, them back here, they're so amazing. I'm sure they would have taken the steps forward just a little longer. It wouldn't have been 11 months. But we find that writing and journaling has helped you, once you see it on the page, to deal with it in black and white the way that, because you know, you have emotions. It's hard to see everything. It's great, but black and white, you know exactly what you're doing.
And how did you find these lovely ladies?
Well, we happened to talk to authors, and these lovely ladies replied back and said they'd love to talk with me, and so I was just utterly shocked. And she had won an IALA award, so we were at the same award ceremony as well.
Okay, so you've been networking then.
Oh, of course. Once you go to an award show, you have to network.
All right, so we are going to hear your story, Wilnona, in just a minute, and also Brandy's story. So let's go to a quick break, and then we'll be back after this. Hi, I'm Chrissy B, host of the UK's only TV programme dedicated to mental health and well-being, The Chrissy B Show, which airs on MyTV Sky 191 every Monday, Wednesday and Friday. Follow our social media on YouTube, Instagram and Twitter at Chrissy B Show, and our Facebook page, The Chrissy B Show. For more information, visit chrissybshow.tv. Welcome back to today's program, everybody. So we've just been speaking to our guests from America. We spoke to Crystal and also Abeni, and now we're going to hear from Brandy and Wilnona. So let's first start off with Brandy. You've been through a lot in your life, haven't you, Brandy?
Oh, yeah. I've packed a lot into 43 years.
Oh, bless. You want to tell us about it?
Yeah, well, I'm kind of started before I was born, actually. My parents met in a psychiatric ward. That's not a joke.
Oh.
That's where they met. Okay. My mom was the ward secretary. My dad was a paranoid schizophrenic in a lockdown ward. Apparently, Mom missed the memo that you're not supposed to pick up dates at the clinic. But at any rate, so they got married. They were together long enough to produce me and my little brother. And then when I was 4, he left. You know, my mom kicked him out, and they got divorced when I was 3 years and 10 months old. And then when my stepfather moved in, he sort of decided he was not needed in the picture anymore, and he went back to Mississippi. And at that young an age, not understanding what was going on, you know, that sort of got me writing a story in my head that said, I'm not lovable. Because if the man who told me he could love me more than anything else in the world could just get up and walk out and leave, how lovable could you be? You know, how lovable could you be? So, and I didn't realize it, but that started to impact me in a lot of different ways. And then my stepfather, that my mother moved in to the picture, began molesting me from that point forward until I was 9. And it took me telling my mom twice before she did something about it. And so he ended up going to jail. And then my mom was dealing with her mental illness and depression. And so I kind of became the focal point for all of her anger and pain. So there was a lot of emotional and even physical abuse going on in the home. And I remember at 13, writing in my journal, she hates me. She really, really hates me. Because it was the only explanation a 13-year-old could come up with for why I was being treated the way I was being treated. And I didn't understand that she was dealing with her own issues. And so at that age, I was asking God to, you know, introduce me to the guy that I was going to marry, because I was just desperate for somebody to love me. And actually, at the end of the summer, I had a guy in mind, but at the end of the summer, I changed the prayer just a little bit, and I said, well, if it's not that guy, just introduce me to the guy, just so I know there's somebody for me. And sure enough, 6 weeks later, I meet my husband for the second time. And that day I walked in and, you know, by the time I got home, it's a little bit of a story, but by the time I got home, I knew he was the one.
You knew? You're really sure?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was absolutely positive that was the one. And so I ended up getting married at 19. I had my son 2 weeks before my 20th birthday. And neither one of us came from backgrounds where we knew how to do conflict resolution well.
Okay.
So conflict resolution sort of consisted of yelling, screaming, and throwing things. Yeah, it's a great recipe for a kid to be raised in, you know, a really great environment. So by the time my son was 7, 2 months before his 8th birthday, he's standing in my bedroom, looking me in the eye, telling me not only that he's going to kill himself, but exactly how he's going to do it, and he has a backup plan in case the first plan doesn't work.
Oh, how did you feel as a mother hearing that?
Like a total and complete failure. He was my dream. I had wanted to be a mother from the time I was little. I could never remember a time when I didn't want to be a mother and a wife, and here I was. I had been a mother and a wife, and I was totally failing my child, and I'd done everything that people told me I was supposed to do. I had pushed myself into my career. You know, I was working 60 to 80 hours a week, making sure that he had all of the things that he needed that I was told that were important. And here it was, staring me in the face, that was not enough. That was not enough. And so I had to confront the fact the next day. Normal people would have called the mental health hotline that the employer provided right away. I didn't trust anybody, though. I didn't know who to trust.
Well, you've been through quite a lot already by that time, so it was difficult for you to
instead of reaching out to the mental health hotline, I went to the only coworker I knew that I could maybe trust in confidence, and she's like, okay, here's what we're going to do. You're going to make this phone call, and I'm going to stand here while you do it so that you don't leave this office until it's done. And even though it was hard for me to admit that I'd failed my kids so badly that death was preferable to life. Oh, sorry, my eyes are stinging.
That's okay.
But at any rate, even though I'd failed him that badly, it felt good to know that I was doing something about it.
Yeah.
You know, to know that I was at least taking those steps forward. And brought him to the counselor 2 weeks later because that was the earliest they could get him in. And she spends an hour with him, and then she pulls me aside and she says, well, your son's very bright. And I'm like, well, thank you for telling me something I already knew. And then she goes, he's just manipulating you. And I smiled and I thanked her and I paid her the money and I walked out the door and I never brought him back. I got him other help.
Yeah.
Put him in a play therapy program that had helped my brother when we were going through the abuse. And then I sat down and evaluated what else I could do for this kid. You know, I instituted a family day where we would spend one day a week together. And it was not doing anything. He was not touching him. He was still, I wish I were dead, I wish I were dead, I wish I were dead. And it wasn't,
how old was he at this point?
He was 7 going on 8.
7, okay.
You know, and it's killing me, you know, this constantly. And it wasn't until I started bringing him back to church that he started improving. And I started going to church. My faith started improving. He started improving. And you know, people were like, well, you know, church is not a magic wand, and it's not. But what it did was the religious aspect is about learning to live in relationship with other people. And what I look back on and realize is that we were so isolated. The dysfunction in our family had caused us to basically shut out everybody out of our life because we didn't know who to let in. And we didn't know how to function in a healthy relationship with other people. So this kid had nobody that he could really be close to because we wouldn't let anybody be close to us. And so as, you know,
it's just something that was passed down, wasn't it? Because you didn't have that.
Exactly.
And then it got passed down. So how were you to know if you didn't learn?
As I look back on it, you know, I was raised by a mother who didn't have a mother that was very good because she didn't have a mother that was very good because she didn't have a mother. There was generations of mothers that didn't know how to mother. You know, and I was just.
But the great thing is, it can be learned. That's
the thing,
and you just have to find the right kind of environment.
And you have to find the right mentors and the right the right tools and put them together. I mean,
and what was worse is that you were feeling guilty for something that wasn't even your fault.
Exactly. Well,
because you were trying your best, like you said, you did. You worked so hard, you tried everything, but it's because you didn't know. You know, you haven't been taught these
things. Don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
And so there's a lot of parents who've been raised being told that what their kid needs is the Xbox and the shoes and all the stuff, right?
Yeah.
That's love. But really, what my kid needed in the bottom line was time and attention and a community.
Yeah. And when you learn all of this stuff, and how quickly did you start to see sort of results?
Once I started making those changes, his turnaround was pretty rapid, and we made a cross-country move. So I literally pulled him away from every bit of family he knew. I didn't realize how insane this was, because most kids who are suicidal, that would be the last thing they would recommend you do. But we made a cross-country move so my husband could pursue his dream in radio. Mm-hmm. And it gave me time to go to school for elementary education, and so I was able to spend more time with him because of the move, and I was able to help him find friends, and he started to have neighborhood friends, and he was playing outside because it was a small town, so I wasn't afraid to let him go to the park by himself. So he started getting healthier, and our lives started turning around, and our marriage started turning around because we were more focused on the relationship than on the conflict.
Yeah, amazing. And when did the writing come in for you?
The writing, I actually finished. I've been writing since I was 13. The writing was how I processed all the things that I was feeling with my mom.
Yeah.
And then, but I was having trouble finishing a book. I would start and I would get to chapter 5 and stop. I didn't realize that inspiration and infatuation are cousins. And they're there to get things started, but they won't help you sustain anything, so you have to find something to ignite it after the infatuation or the inspiration is gone. And so it was National Novel Writing Month that kind of helped me, because they said, if you run out of inspiration, drop a new character into it. See where it takes you. And then the other piece of advice there was, this is your first book. Don't be afraid to write the biggest pile of horse dung the world has ever seen. It's okay. And it gave me permission to fail, while still succeeding.
Okay, and what's your book called?
Well, I've got 7 books.
Wow.
But 7 published titles. I've got more that are in order, but the biggest one I wanted to focus on, I wrote The Poverty Diaries in 2014, actually as a way of raising funds to get to my son's military graduation, because we were so broke.
Yeah.
We were constantly in poverty, and so I released that to help other people who are in poverty, and to help people who are outside of poverty understand what it's like from the inside out. Yeah. What is the thought process that's going on? And then this year I'm releasing Writing Problems into Profits, because that's what I found, is that every problem you have, the problems in your past, they're all the things that you have to offer somebody today that's valuable now to the person that's facing the problem you were facing back then that you learned to solve. Yeah. And then the problems that you're facing today are the things that are going to be of value tomorrow. They're your future fortune. So every problem you have in life is something that's actually meant for your good and your great.
Yeah. So amazing. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Yeah. So now it's time for your story, Wilnona. Can you tell us about your past and what's happened to you and how you've overcome and come through fighting?
I believe the last time I was here, I shared way too much. So this time I'm going to try to, be conservative. But my story this time, it began with after I got divorced and I had overcome the abuse and I was ready for my next relationship. And you're not going to believe this, but the night my husband left me was the night that a guy I fell in love with 7 years ago called me.
Oh, wow.
45 minutes after he walked out the door. He had found his number from my number from somebody else, and he called me. And we went out to McDonald's.
Okay.
It was midnight. So anyway, it was nice to know that we both were interested, but I wasn't divorced yet fully, so I had to wait a little while. Once I got divorced, he finally asked for real to get married, and I was so excited. And you're thinking about wedding dresses and everything like that. And a couple of weeks before the wedding, I got a text. Actually, it was Jade who got a text from his best friend saying that he had already gotten married to somebody else.
What?
Which was interesting because I had talked to his parents before I went. We were talking about shopping for furniture, and you know, they were talking about getting a home and how.
So he was getting married to someone else, or he was already married to
He was getting married.
He was getting married, so he was.
He just married somebody else out of the blue. His parents didn't know, his brother didn't know, his friends didn't know, and.
What did that do to you? Obviously shock, first of all.
I was not as good as Abeni or Crystal behind me. It did not take me 11 months. It took me 3 years to stop crying. I lost so much weight. I just didn't want to eat. Because when you fall in love with someone not once, not twice, but 3 times, you know that's what you want to do.
Did he ever get in touch and give you an explanation?
He did get in touch at a yearly event to ask me to be the woman on the side. It was a God event, so it was odd. But I kindly said, I pass. And I loved his rebuttal. I can talk about it now, because before I was really upset. His rebuttal was, you know you want to do this because you love me. It was probably true. I did like him a lot. I didn't love him anymore. Because love equals respect. Respect equals love. And you can't do that if you're just, because this is the 3rd time he had just walked off with someone else. So you don't respect someone if you're doing that over and over and over again. And I don't think I would have recovered in my 3 years if I hadn't sat down, because I started a romance novel actually about meeting him, because that was insanely amazing.
That's when things were going well.
That's when things were going great. When you know, 45 minutes after he walks out the door, you have to write about that. You can't let that go. And because you're living a rom-com. Turns out that I needed an ending, and I couldn't find that ending. In 3 years, I could not find that ending. But after 3 years, I found the ending. It was, I love myself, not necessarily a man, not necessarily my things, which is a whole nother detachment story, but me. You wake up in the morning, find something to love about you. And if you need to, write it down and carry it with you, so you can remember that you are truly loved by you.
When did you actually come to that realization, and what led you to that point where you thought, well, actually, I need to value myself and I need to love myself? Because obviously someone that truly loves themselves will kind of avoid getting into situations that will hurt them. That's normally how it works. But when did that actually kind of click for you and think, you know what, that's it now, I'm not going to be used, abused anymore. It's time for me now, and time to take control of my life.
For your audience, I want to tell them, please find a different answer than me, because I lost all this weight, and I looked in the mirror one day and I was like, I'm hot. He was ugly, and so was my ex-husband. What am I doing? I can do better. Even just personality-wise, I can do better. So that's when I realized that I hope for everyone else it is a deeper connection. It's not just gonna be going, oh my goodness, look at me. Yeah. So there's also the journaling that I mentioned before, that can definitely help. And I don't think if I hadn't started that story, I probably wouldn't even bother looking in that mirror in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, you did sink really low to be sort of crying for 3 years. I mean, that's a lot of time to, over someone that doesn't even deserve it, right? Because of what they did to you. But how, I can imagine, what was maybe like your lowest point in those 3 years, and how did you pull yourself out of that?
I'm going to be completely honest on this one. So my lowest point was at work one day, and I was sitting there and I hated my job, and my ex-husband had just done something really mean, and I recognized I also didn't have a fiance. And I didn't have that ring that I was promised that was still at the jeweler's. You know, and I didn't have any of these things anymore, and I could barely pay for my house. And I just balked at my job, and the person I was working with, they were like, you should have cried ages ago like this. Yeah. But what helped me that day and the next day was not only focusing on my own self-worth, but seeing that self-worth, because at the time I was working with a deaf, blind, autistic child. And during your day, that takes up all your time. Yeah, you got to teach them Braille and sign language, takes up everything. So keeping your mind focused, like these two said, on your actual job helped a lot. And then actually seeing his progress, that also helped. It reminded me that I can accomplish small things.
Amazing. Now, just before we go, ladies, because there might be someone watching now that's going through a difficult time. I mean, your stories are so varied, but all sort of touching on a difficult moment or moments in your life. if this viewer is watching now and thinking, my problem is too difficult, I can't see myself ever progressing in life, ever being happy again, what would you say to them? Start with.
I would say have fun finding that new thing, practicing new things. So for my platform, the military women I talk to that are getting ready to transition, I always tell them to find their new platoon. So as civilians, I would say the same thing. You have to find your new platoon. Finding your new platoon is finding your purpose. You know, I met Crystal at a great time where, you know, writing in that journal, writing the journal, being on that project with her helped me out a lot. I also started a Facebook community, Abeni Celeste. You know, we would do live videos encouraging and empowering women.
Yeah.
After a year of videos, Chrissy, I'm like, what am I supposed to do with all these videos? So we turned it into a book. So, you know, that's another book that I authored, Thursday Talk on the Red Couch. Camouflage Sisters, that's the military platform that I share with Lila Holly, the visionary, where women, military women are sharing their stories in an inspirational manner. We're not badging the military or talking bad, but, you know, we're sharing our stories that helped heal us, you know, and so finding your new platoon finding that new purpose and just have fun. You know, if you try something, you don't like it, try again. And in that, I promise you, you know, you'll find a purpose.
Amazing. How about you, Crystal? What would you say?
Yes, I always say never to let, you know, if you're in a dark place like I was in before, or you feel like you're at the bottom and it's been pulled from you. We've all been there, that hard times don't last. It's just temporarily, not to make a permanent decision based off of temporary feelings and continue to push. So that's what helped me through that writing process, writing about positive things. We mentioned the titles. What am I grateful for? Writing out 3 things you're grateful for that day. 3 positive things that you can journal at the end of your day, because it's so easy to focus on all the negative, bad stuff. We don't have to magnify the bad things in our life. Let's focus on the positive.
Okay, amazing. And you, Brandy, what would you say to our viewers?
I would say that no matter what you're going through, everything that you're going through today is preparing you for a better future. If life is shoveling manure in your direction like nobody's business, think about what a farmer does when he's trying to get a fruit plant ready to grow big harvests. You have a lot of fertilizer you need. So, and fertilizer is all made out of poop. So, you know, if life is shoveling it your direction, trust that you're being cultivated and grown so that you're going to be your most fruitful and maximum self when the season is ready. And it may take 3 years. You know, that's how long a fruit tree takes before it bears fruit for the first time. It may take 3 years of cultivation. It may take 43 years of cultivation.
As long as you get there in the end and to keep trying until you get there. Amazing. And final words from you, Wilnona, my love.
I'm going to say, remember to appreciate yourself, the small things, and definitely write it all down. Have a way to look back at it. I've met all these ladies through being a part of a group, an anti-thought lady group. And I've met all of these ladies through writing. And their stories are just as amazing, and probably they did better than I will ever do.
Well, you all did brilliantly. Thank you so much, ladies, for coming on and sharing your story. And all the best when you go back home.
Thank you
so
for having
much.
us. It's been such a pleasure.
Oh, it's been amazing. Thank you. Okay, everybody, so after the break, we'll welcome back nutritionist Severine Menem, who'll be speaking about all things vitamin D and the importance of it for your skin. And Dr. Rob Hicks will be answering your medical questions. Welcome to today's Chrissy B Show, everybody. And now it's time for Doctor's Answers with Dr. Rob Hicks. Welcome to the show, Rob.
Hi, Chris. How are you?
I'm well. How are you?
Very well, thank you. I'm ready to get going.
Wonderful. So here's your first question, Rob. Why do I pee more when I've not even drunk that much water?
That's a really good question,
Interesting
isn't it?
question.
Yeah, very interesting. A couple of reasons. From a lifestyle point of view, it may be that you may not be drinking that much water, but you could be drinking lots of other types of drinks. So of course you'll pee more. Maybe the drinks you're drinking have got caffeine in them, you know, coffee or tea. Maybe it's because you're drinking alcohol. You know, caffeine and alcohol both will make you pee more often than you might expect. If you're a woman, you could be pregnant, because often when women are pregnant, they find that they pee more. So maybe you might be pregnant, and that's something to think about. Medical reasons, well, diabetes is a very important one. People pee a lot, you know, without consuming excessive amounts of fluid. Bladder infections, sexually transmitted infections, thrush, fungal thrush infections can all make people pee more frequently. For men, prostate gland problems. For men and women, overactive bladder, the side effect of medication, and constipation actually can make people pee more often because the constipated bowel presses on the bladder. And then from an emotional point of view, then of course stress and anxiety. Often it's a symptom that people find themselves wanting to go to the toilet more frequently. So I think you should have a checkup with your doctor, get to the bottom of what's causing your problem in case it needs some specific treatment, particularly if you've got symptoms like pain, blood in the urine, or actually any sort of discharge of any sort. So get that checked out, I think.
Wonderful. And the next question. Does a general anaesthetic cause constipation? I recently had surgery and for a few days have been constipated, and I'm normally so regular 3 to 4 times per day.
Another good question.
Yes.
Yeah, well, the answer is it can do. But there are lots of other reasons associated with surgery why somebody might become constipated.
Okay.
So the whole stress of going through an operation, having to go into hospital and everything that goes with the operation may slow your bowels down. Being in a new environment may slow your bowels down. Being inactive, particularly after surgery, can slow the bowels down. You may not be eating as much food or drinking as much liquid after the operation, or you may have been advised not to have so much, a day or so before the operation as well. So that could be an effect. Side effects of medication, like painkillers that you might be receiving, that could be responsible. You may be holding on either because it feels uncomfortable or it's painful to open the bowels, or maybe you're just feeling a bit awkward about being in a public-ish toilet on the ward. Often happens that when people go on holiday, they get constipated because they don't want to use the public toilets or toilets where they know other people might be going.
It's funny how our bodies are, isn't it?
Yeah, our mind and our body reacts in incredibly interesting ways. Another reason is if you've had surgery on your bowel, then the muscles may be weakened, and so that will slow things up. But it may purely be a coincidence. So the things to do is to keep as active as you can and check with your doctor how active you're able to be after your surgery. Make sure you have lots of fibre in your diet, lots of fluid, keep stress under control, respond to Mother Nature's call, so you don't sort of hold it back. And think about using a laxative, but I would check with your doctor or your pharmacist first about what's suitable for you, depending on what sort of operation you've had. But never be frightened or embarrassed to ask for advice about constipation. It's common. And it can be uncomfortable, but it can be easily overcome. And I think that's one of the good things about the question is that somebody has been brave enough to ask the question rather than just sit there in silent suffering.
And in pain, I suppose.
Well, it gets painful, as things, build up. So it's important to people often take constipation lightly. It's important to take it seriously.
Definitely. Rob, thank you so much.
My pleasure.
And we'll see you again next time.
Yes, indeed.
Wonderful. Okay, everybody, so now it's time to talk to nutritionist Severine Menem all about the importance of vitamin D, and she'll also show us a recipe that actually prepares the skin for vitamin D. Welcome to the show, Severine.
Hi, Chrissy.
So today's all about vitamin D.
Absolutely.
Tell us, why is it important?
Vitamin D helps regulate calcium, magnesium and phosphate, which are really important for the health of our bones, our muscles and our teeth, but also for the immune system. Okay. Vitamin D is present in some foods, in fish, for example, in wild salmon, in herring, sardine, shrimps, cod liver oil. Okay. If you don't like fish, you got the egg yolk or mushrooms. Otherwise, you got food that are fortified, which means that are not supposed to have vitamin D, but are vitamin D added. Okay. You've got that in cow's milk, soy milk, orange juice, and sometimes some cereals.
Oh, okay.
But the best thing with vitamin D is actually it's a hormone, which means that the body can produce it. And it can produce it when the sun touches our skin in certain conditions. And because we live in such northern latitudes, it's only during the summer that we can produce the vitamin D.
Okay.
And the good stuff is when we produce it, it can be stored in our fat because it's a fat-soluble vitamin.
Oh, okay, interesting.
So yeah.
But it's good to get it in our food as well then, though.
Yes, it's good to get enough food, but if we don't like any of these foods and you don't like to take supplements, then the best next thing is to get it from the natural way. I know some people here have some problem with the sun, like they get sunburn or they get really red, which is not really good for the skin. So the best way to prepare the skin to absorb vitamin D is to eat some good nutrients, carotenoid, which, as the name says, it includes all the foods that are orange, like carrots, mango, sweet potato, apricot. Also, some green foods have it: broccoli, kale, spinach, peas, and so on.
Okay.
And the next other food is vitamin E, which is really good for the skin in general. And vitamin E is in all the seeds and nuts. So, hazelnut, walnut, almonds, and pine nuts, and I don't know, there are so many of them in basically all the nuts in different quantities, but they are available. So I thought about the recipe of a smoothie today to prepare the skin for the sun.
Lovely.
And so here the main ingredients are all contain carotenoid. And we've got the almond for the vitamin E. And I'm using this liquid, which is actually coconut water, and it's good for electrolytes.
Right, okay.
Which means that it helps replenish the body when you sweat a lot. And that's why it's not transparent. It's an interesting color.
From the river.
Yes, exactly. So let's start with, a bit of that. Bit of broccoli, a few carrots, and some mango, and some spinach.
Is there a best time of day to have this, or any time?
I think any time is good. I'm not aware of any studies showing that it's best to have it. The thing is, you can't really do a one-off. You have to prepare the skin for a number of days or weeks in order. Everything that has to do with food is usually super slow to act.
So start this early, everyone.
Yes. Oh my God. I'm so sorry for the mess.
It's all right.
Okay, so here we are. I'm going to blend it. The good thing is a smoothie is not only fruits, so it's not very sweet and you won't get on a high very quickly. Because of all the vegetables. It's more balanced with sugar and it's got all the fibers as well.
Yeah, because sometimes people just tend to have just fruit smoothies and it's just so much sugar, isn't it?
Yes, it is. And also it's got the fats from the almonds.
Should we try it then, Severine?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cheers.
It's summer.
Cheers. Vitamin D ready. There we go, vitamin ready. I can taste the broccoli.
Yes, I like when it's a bit crunchy, so it's not everyone's taste.
But this gets your vitamin D, gets your body ready to absorb that vitamin D.
The skin ready to absorb the vitamin D better.
Wonderful. Severine, thank you so much,
You
my love.
are welcome.
And we'll see you again very soon.
Okay.
And everybody, if you'd like to know more about Severine, do head over to our website, chrissybshow.tv. Scroll down and you can find all of her information there. So actually, I'm going to end the show on this note. Thank you so much to all my guests that I've had on today's program. And if you have a story that you would like to share, please do get in touch by emailing us on info@chrissybshow.tv. You can also tweet or Instagram us @chrissybshow or leave a message on our Facebook page of The Chrissy B Show. And if you'd like to know more about my mental health journey, visit my personal website, which is mylifeafterdepression.com. Till next time, bye for now.